Welcome to episode 286 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Lost Guy. It's August 13, 1948. Wembley, Olympic football final. Sweden against Yugoslavia. 24th minute, Gunnar Gren scores. Just before halftime, Stepan Bobek equalizes. Early in the second half, Gunnar Nordahl scores, and in the 67th minute, Gren scores again from the penalty spot. Sweden 3, Yugoslavia 1. Olympic gold. Sweden has its greatest men's football title. 10 years before hosting the World Cup final, Swedish football is at its peak. But how did we get here? Start with Sweden's football geography. Football grows in Sweden around schools, clubs, ports, towns, factories, and the general Scandinavian sporting movement. The Swedish Football Association is founded in 1904. Sweden is also one of FIFA's founding members. The national team plays its first international in 1908. And the neighbors matter immediately. Norway, Denmark, especially Denmark. Scandinavian football is intimate, short travel, similar sporting cultures, old amateur ideals, and enough national pride to make every meeting feel like a referendum of who understands the game best. Sweden take Olympic bronze in 1924. Then the official league, Allsvenskan, begins in 1925. By the 1930s and 40s, Swedish club football has real strength. IFK Norrköping becomes a major force. IFK Göteborg, AIK, Malmö, Helsingborg, Gais, Djurgården, different centers, different histories. But the national team is still bound by amateurism, and that matters. Sweden does not embrace professionalism at home, and Swedish football officials are cautious about professionals abroad. So Sweden is in a strange place, talented enough to produce major players, but structurally reluctant to professionalize, like Italy, Spain, or England. Then comes the Second World War. Sweden is neutral. That doesn't mean untouched, but it does mean Swedish football is not shattered in the way much of continental Europe is. Stadiums are not bombed like in Britain. The league structure is not ripped apart like in occupied countries. A generation is not consumed by the war to the same degree. So when international football returns in 1948, Sweden is unusually intact. And then Sweden hire an Englishman, George Raynor, former player, traveler, coach, not a global celebrity, but a very important organizer of Sweden's golden decade. He is helped by strong Swedish leadership around the team, including Putte Kock as team leader. The team itself is exceptional. Torsten Lindberg in goal, Erik Nilsson, Birger Rosengren, Sune Andersson, the Nordahl brothers, Bertil Knut, and above all, Gunnar. Kjell Rosén, Henrik Carlsson, Gunnar Gren, Nils Liedholm. This is not only a good Olympic team, this is a future export list. Now London 1948, the austerity games, post-war Britain, rationing still in the background, a world trying to restart international sport. Germany and Japan, they're not there. The Soviet Union is not yet competing, but the football tournament is still strong and fascinating. Italy are there, Yugoslavia are there, Denmark are there, Great Britain are the hosts, India make the Olympic football debut, and Sweden arrive as one of the favorites. First match, White Hart Lane, Sweden 3, Austria 0. Gunnar Nordahl scores twice. Then quarterfinal, Selhurst Park, Sweden 12, Korea 0. That's not a win, that's a storm. Nordahl scores 4, Henrik Carlsson scores 3, Kjell Rosén 2, Nils Liedholm 2, Gunnar Gren 1. Now comes the semi-final, Wembley, Sweden against Denmark. A Nordic match in the home of English football. And Denmark are serious. They had just beaten Italy 5-3 at Highbury, with John Hansen scoring 4. This is the so-called bronze team generation. John Hansen, Karl Ove Præst, Karl Ove Hansen, Knud Lundberg, Axel Pilmark, a brilliant Danish amateur side. But Sweden are strong, too strong. Rosén scores twice, Henrik Carlsson scores twice, so Sweden win 4-2. Denmark later beat Great Britain 5-3 for bronze, so the Nordic countries take gold and bronze at Wembley. Let that sit for a second. The British host the Olympic tournament, and the Scandinavian amateurs walk away with 2 medals. Now the final. Yugoslavia. Do not treat them as a background character here. This is the beginning of a powerful Yugoslav football generation. Rajko Mitic, Stepan Bobek, Zlatko Tchaikovsky, Selko Tchaikovsky, Bernard Vukas. Technically excellent, politically complicated too. Yugoslavia is socialist, but after 1948, It would not simply be Moscow's satellite. This is a serious opponent. And they fight. Gren scores, Bobek equalizes. Halftime 1-1. Then Nordahl, then Gren again. 3-1. And Sweden are Olympic champions. But so what? This is the highest Swedish men's football achievement by trophy. 1958 is bigger in global visibility because it is a World Cup final at home against Pelé's Brazil. 1994 is beloved because Sweden finished third in the United States. Euro 1992 matters because Sweden hosted and Denmark win the fairy tale. Zlatan gives the modern era its superstar, but in terms of winning a major senior men's international tournament, 1948 is the summit. Gold medal, Wembley, Yugoslavia beaten, 22 goals scored in 4 matches, only 3 conceded. The goal immediately creates a labour market shock. Italian clubs are watching, and Sweden's amateur system cannot hold the players. Gunnar Nordahl goes to AC Milan, then Gunnar Gren, then Nils Liedholm, Gre-No-Li. We talked about them in episode 97, and again in episode 150, when Real Madrid invited IFK Norrköping in 1952, partly because Swedish football still had enormous status. At Milan, Gre-No-Li becomes one of European club football's great forward lines. Nordahl becomes one of Serie A's greatest scorers. Liedholm becomes a football statesman in Italy. Gren becomes the professor. Henrik Carlsson goes to Atletico Madrid. Swedish football had produced a golden team, but then the market starts taking it apart. Denmark feels the same pull. John Hansen and Carlo Prast go to Juventus. Other Danes go abroad too. And because DBU still insists on pure amateurs, those players are lost to the Danish national team. The Danish Federation later looks back and says, in effect, that team might have done something at the 1950 World Cup, but professionalism took its best men away. The irony is sharp. Olympic amateurism gives Sweden and Denmark the stage in 1948. Professional football then steals the cast. Sweden adapts. 2 years later, at the 1950 World Cup, Sweden still finished third. Then comes 1958, home World Cup. Raynor returns, and now Sweden allow professionals. Gren and Liedholm are back in the story. Kurt Hamrin, Simonsson, a team that reaches the final before Brazil's 17-year-old Pelé announces another future. Sweden lose 5-2. But 1948 and 1958 are connected. The Olympic gold is the first peak. The World Cup final is the last act of the same golden age. After that, Sweden remains a serious football country, but the summit becomes harder to reach. 1974 brings a good World Cup side. IFK Göteborg win the UEFA Cup in 1982 and 87. Euro 92 is hosted in Sweden, but Denmark steals the tournament. 94 brings the bronze. Then Zlatan gives Sweden global stardust without a major trophy. So where does 1948 rank? Right at the top. Not because Olympic football always had the same meaning as the World Cup. It didn't. But in 1948, before the Cold War state amateur era fully distorts Olympic football, this is still an elite tournament. And Sweden win it beautifully. Before we go, 3 things to take away from August 13, 1948. First, Sweden's Olympic gold was not an accident. It came from a strong, intact football culture, post-war continuity, George Raynor's organization, and a brilliant generation. Second, the tournament was also a Nordic statement. Sweden won gold, Denmark won bronze, and Scandinavian amateur football beat the hosts and much of Europe at Wembley. Third, the medal triggered the professional question. Gre-No-Li and others left for Southern Europe, forcing Sweden and Denmark to confront the limits of amateur idealism. On this day in 1948, Sweden beat Yugoslavia 3-1 at Wembley. Gunnar Gren scored twice, Gunnar Nordahl scored once. Sweden won Olympic gold, and Swedish football's golden decade truly began. That is all for episode 286 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Laws Guy. I'm so grateful for your support and ideas. I get many emails and they tell me I'm hitting a nerve. If you hit the subscribe button, rate OTD show 5 stars, or share it with friends, we can get more ideas for future episodes. Thank you for helping me grow the show. Tomorrow, we go to August 14, 1965, when the expanded Bundesliga kicked off with 2 matches and 2 harbingers of either end of the table when the season ended. Bayern's debut in the Bundesliga, losing 1-0 to city rivals 1860, and amateur club Tasmania Berlin's 2-0 win against Karlsruhe. Auf Wiederhören.